Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nathan back with another video for you today. Today we have the next episode of Power Surge, which is our 2025 NFL Power Ranking Series. Today we're going to be discussing the 28th ranked Chicago Bears. Now, I know this is probably going to be a very controversial take. I know because of Ben Johnson, this team is going to be some darlings. I know Bears fans come in loud and strong, so I'm very much expecting to be in the minority of this opinion. But if you go ahead and hear me out, I do think I have a lot of valid points, and let's just go ahead and get straight into it. So, the first thing that we need to talk about is the 2024 season. In order to know where we're going, I think it's very important to contextualize the 2024 season to help explain how we got to our current position. So, last year, the Bears were 5 and 12 overall while going 8-7-2 against the spread. So win-wise, they were not very good. However, they were able to keep games close. However, that was really only when Matt Eberflus was there. He ultimately ended up losing his job last year, and we'll get more specifically into that. But I think the thing that this offense struggled with most was the offense. This offense was ranked 28th in points per game and dead last in yards per game. So this team was not scoring and they were not moving the ball. So that's why you bring in Ben Johnson. Hope he can kind of fix some of those things. But the two big things you're going to have to fix is Caleb Williams. He was sacked 68 times last year, leading the league by far. The issue is that a lot of those were not just offensive line mistakes, it was Caleb Williams trying to do too much. And because of his constant trying to do too much, Caleb Williams finished as quarterback 32 on the season, according to PFF. So overall, Caleb Williams struggled. This offensive line was not doing him any favors, so this offense was really bad at not scoring points. The defense, however, while finishing 28th in points per game and 27th in yards per game, actually was pretty solid when Matt Eberflus was there. In his 12 games that he was still a coach, they held teams under 20.7 times. Three of their losses came against the Green Bay Packers, the Vikings, and the Detroit Lions, all by less than a score. All three of those teams made the playoffs, and he was able to keep those games close. They also only lost by a field goal to the Washington Commanders with that ridiculous Hail Mary play. So I do think that this Bears team was actually a lot better under Matt Eberflus than any Bears fan is rightfully going to give him credit for. And so I do think that actually that Commanders loss is really what kind of led to the spiral that cost Eberflus his job. Because they were 4-2 to start off the season, and then they would proceed to not win a single game until week 18 against the Packers when they had already guaranteed a playoff spot and were starting Malik Willis. So overall, I do understand why they let go of Eberflus. He had clearly lost the locker room, but I do actually think he was doing a much better job than he's ever going to get credit for, which really is unfortunate for him. However, now that he does have the job lead down in Dallas, I do think he's going to have a pretty good season with that defense because, as I said, he was doing a much better job than those numbers are going to indicate. So now, as we transition into their offseason, what they did to fix this team, first of all, as I said, they brought in Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson has been the number one coaching candidate for about 3 cycles now, it feels like. And so him finally deciding to leave Detroit and come to Chicago, I think it's good for him. He's got a team that's clearly bought into him and is going to try to give him whatever he wants to succeed. I have no doubts in Ben Johnson as a play designer and play caller. However, we still need to see how he is as a culture and leader, a culture setter and a leader. That's a very important aspect of coaching that people just always kind of like to gloss over. One of the most important things in the NFL is your overall culture. So will he be able to set that culture? Unlike Matt Eberflus, time will only tell. No matter what, though, it will be an upgrade over Luke Getsy and Thomas Brown. I don't think any of them need to be offensive coordinators. I think they are both not very good football minds. You can watch some of the QB School's videos breaking down the Justin Fields Bears offenses, and you'll see kind of just how inept Luke Getsy really was. On the offense, though, you could tell they clearly valued improving this offense a lot. So they spent their first round pick on Colston Loveland. They spent a second round pick on Luther Burden. They brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, Devin Duvernay, and then they really tried to beef up this offensive line with Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, as well as spending a second-round pick on Ozzie Trapilo. So they really, really valued improving this offense and offensive line. And the actual talent that they're saying goodbye to, Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, none of them were super productive for the Bears team last season. Then they're saying goodbye to Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Matt Pryor, and Larry Borum. All four of them are solid, capable NFL offensive linemen, but you are at least happy. I think the pieces they brought in are better. My only issue with some of the pieces that they brought in on the offensive line and kind of just in general with this team, and we'll discuss more specifically, is based on what Ben Johnson was doing in Detroit. I don't know if these guys are the right scheme fit and the right fit for, kind of what this team is going to be trying to do. So that is kind of what my holdup and kind of my worry is for this offseason. On the defensive side of the ball, though, they do bring in Dennis Allen to be their defensive coordinator. He is almost the exact same shoes as Matt Eberflus, as a good defensive mind who just didn't have the leadership capabilities to be a head coach. However, so I do expect with him coming in, I do think the team here already is going to be able to play this scheme pretty well. They have some solid scheme fits, so I do think this defense is going to keep playing pretty well. And then bringing in Grady Jarrett, Shamar Turner, Dio Odeyingbo, and Tano Kapassignon on the defensive line is only going to help. Ruben Hippolyte and Zoff Frazier, two more rookies. I don't really expect them to get a whole lot of playing time. Saying goodbye to DeMarcus Walker, Darrell Taylor, and Jacob Martin on the edge. I mean, those are all fine NFL caliber players, but no one you're too upset about losing. And then Jack Sanborn is a linebacker that has solid potential, is a good player. However, with the linebackers they already have here, it's not getting a whole lot of playing time. So saying goodbye to him ultimately at the end of the day isn't the worst thing in the world. So as we kind of recap their offseason, we are really expecting Ben Johnson to come in and fix things right away. I think out of any of the new hires, he has the absolute shortest rope, partly because of the expectation, partly because I know how Chicago Bear fans are. So he has a really small leash to come in and really get this offense going. And you can see that they clearly valued improving the offensive line and the skill positions on this team. You can tell that was clearly a priority of theirs. However, I'm not sure if they brought in the right pieces for what we've seen Ben Johnson wants to do on offense. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about. However, their defense was actually pretty solid. And so they did the smart thing of kind of leaving it alone for the most part. Keep kind of the same core, bring in some more of kind of those fringe outside players, and see if you can kind of just get better in the margins there. So overall, you do have a much better offseason. Ben Johnson should improve this offense. And if defense is still the same, then you should have the potential to be a much better team. But now, as we kind of start talking about this offense more specifically, I still have issues with Caleb Williams. He clearly struggled as a rookie quarterback. He had some good moments in there, but like as I discussed with Trevor Lawrence in the last video, is you become the worst of your traits. So even though he has these moments where he's able to make some spectacular plays, his big issue is that he still manages to hold onto the ball way too long. And part of kind of what got Carson Wentz out of a starting job is this headhunting, trying to do too much all of the time. And something that I noticed that pisses me off every single time is when he's scrambling, he drops his shoulder, turns in his chest, and gets out of a throwing motion. So that's part of the reason that led to so many sacks for Caleb Williams last year. A lot of them were his fault, not just on the offensive line. And then I do think, kind of as a running and scrambling threat, I think he's kind of overrated. He's he's above average. He's not like a Kirk Cousins where he's completely immobile. But I do think his actual ability as a runner is overstated. Last year he only had about 30 more yards than Lamar Jackson on almost 10 less scrambles. So he was not nearly as efficient, which granted Lamar Jackson is probably the best running quarterback in the league. So, I mean, that's kind of an unfair torch to hold. But Caleb Williams isn't that elite guy. So he really does need to learn how to play within the structure of the offense more. Ben Johnson isn't going to want Caleb Williams to be trying to play Superman every single play. That's why Jared Goff was so successful in Detroit, because Jared Goff would just pay attention to the scheme, put the ball where it needed to go, and let the playmakers make the plays. I think Caleb Williams is so used to having to be the one to make the plays, where it's really going to be interesting to see if Ben Johnson can kind of weed that out of him and force him to kind of be more domesticated, or if Caleb is still going to kind of have in his mind this Superman ball idea that he thinks he needs to have. So I think that is going to lead to some discontent between Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. Now, same thing with this receiving group. I don't know if I trust their roles to do what Ben Johnson kind of wants to do. So starting off with DJ Moore, his best season was a couple seasons ago. He's always never quite been quite as good as you'd expect. So I'm really kind of just doubting him. Last season, he struggled. And so he's probably going to be the closest thing to your kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown in this offense. He does have the ability to break tackles and is good after the catch, but last year that took a step down. So if he's not able to catch the ball and get that run after catch, I do think that's going to hurt what this offense is going to want to do. Rome Odunze is going to be kind of the wide receiver too, kind of what Tim Patrick, Josh Reynolds were. He doesn't quite have the speed to do kind of what all they were doing with Jameson Williams. So he's kind of just going to be a boundary guy, a solid possession wide receiver, but I don't expect him to be super, super productive in this offense. Olumide Zaccheaus, if DJ Moore's not playing the slot, Olumide Zaccheaus is a really good slot player. He's going to block his ass off, and so I do think he's a good guy to bring in to kind of help set some of that kind of tough-nosed culture that they had in Detroit. And then Luther Burden, there's been some reports of him struggling in camp and not knowing the playbook. I am already not super high on him in the first place. He's already got an uphill battle to even get playing time, so I don't think he's going to have a spectacular season. I think he's not going to do a whole lot. Colston Loveland, I think, was overdrafted. Still probably a first-round caliber player. But, I mean, it's clear that this is a position that Ben Johnson values. Typically, I am anti-rookie tight end because the tight end, you got to learn how to block, receive. Like, there's a lot more to it than I think people kind of realize. But, I thought that about Sam Laporta, and then he had the best tight end rookie season almost ever till Brock Bowers came in the league. So I do think there's potential for Colston Loveland to have a good season. It's definitely in there. And if he doesn't, Cole Kmet is a solid receiving tight end. He's definitely not a great athlete, but technically he's sound, he's got good hands, and can kind of do a little bit of whatever. So having him as a second tight end doesn't hurt. And then Durham Smythe, they brought him in as their tight end 3. Seeing him here almost kind of makes me wonder if they're going to start leaning more into the wide zone scheme, but time will tell on that one. And then the running back room, I think this is the worst running back room in the NFL. DeAndre Swift was there in Detroit, and Ben Johnson and company got rid of them because they didn't like what he was doing. He has the worst vision in the NFL out of any running back. And as I was saying with Caleb Williams, his entire goal for the offense, Ben Johnson's entire goal for the offense, is to follow what he wants you to do, to keep the ball moving, to run the ball, hit the holes, trust the offense. DeAndre Swift has not learned that he can't bounce every single run outside, and he doesn't hit the holes that he needs to hit. So ultimately, I'm very confident that Ben Johnson is going to get very, very annoyed with DeAndre Swift again. So I do think there's a very good possibility that we see a lot of Roschon Johnson or a lot of Kyle Benagai in lieu of DeAndre Swift, because I do think he's going to struggle. And so I think that is going to be overall something that's going to hinder this offense, as if they're not getting the early down yards running the ball, and you're putting Caleb Williams into a spot where it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and long in general, and you need him to make a play, I think he's going to try to do too much. And so I think that's going to lead to a lot of frustration for Ben Johnson with Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift. So I do think there's potential for this offense to kind of implode and start having culture issues really early on. Luckily, they should be aided with their offensive line, and I think it's a good offensive line in theory, but I still think there's a disconnect between the scheme and the talent. So we'll start off with Joe Thuney, one of the best guards in the league, but he's more gotten his money off his pass protection. He is the best pass protecting guard in the league. His he's not a bad run defender. He's a good run blocker, I mean, but he's not one of these kind of people movers and these absolute maulers that could kind of pull and go just clear people and delete them out of the play like he had in Detroit. So I do think he's going to help your offensive line, but I don't think he's going to be able to do all the same things that you're able to do in Detroit, where the reason they were so successful is they could run the ball on anybody because they had some absolute moving trucks up front that would just delete people from the plays. I don't know if Joe Tooney is the right guy for that, even though he is a really talented guard. Left tackle, Braxton Jones, same thing. He's a solid tackle. Even keeping Laren Borum would have helped, but he's a better pass protector. Same thing. I don't really know if he's going to be deleting people in the run game. Drew Dahlman is a good center if you are in a wide zone scheme. He's going to be more athletic, but definitely more undersized. So if you're doing a lot of move and reach blocking, he's able to use his speed to get around guys and kind of set that edge there. I think that would be super, super beneficial. But if we're talking about a Ben Johnson where he wants to power and absolutely maul people, Drew Dahlman just doesn't have the size or power to be able to do that. And so that's why I kind of start talking about this disconnect between scheme and the talent that they have. Jonah Jackson got way overpaid in LA. So, I mean, he's going to be an okay run blocker that has the ability to sometimes delete some guys. Like he had a couple good, he's had several good games in his career before, but I think he is overrated at this point of his career. And then Darnell Wright had a really good rookie season. I think we're kind of expecting him to kind of be Penei Sewell light. You're definitely hoping that's where he grows into, but Penei Sewell is on a Hall of Fame trajectory, so that's big shoes for Darnell Wright to fill. So that's what I'm saying. I think this offensive line has good players in theory, but I don't know if they properly fit the scheme needed for Ben Johnson. And then Ozzie Trapilo and Ryan Bates, not very good. I don't think, at least not for Ozzie in his first season. So if you start getting injuries, I do think this offensive line could then be even worse. So overall, even though they have Ben Johnson, I'm worried about how all of these pieces are going to mesh together. I do think that Ben Johnson is going to get pretty frustrated with this offense pretty quickly. So now, as we talk about this defense, this is actually a group that I think is going to be pretty good. So starting on the defensive line with Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat is a good edge player. He can stop the run and get after the quarterback at a pretty good rate, but he's probably kind of a mid to low end number one pass rusher in the league. Having him as your best defensive lineman definitely isn't bad, but he's not in the tier two, not in the tier one of edge rushers. He's not a Josh Hines Allen, he's not a Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, etc. He's kind of in that tier three of really solid, good edge defenders. So having him as your best piece, definitely don't think it's anything you have to worry about. But I'm not expecting him to have some like 80, 90 pressure season. I'd be competing for Defensive Player of the Year award. And then the other guys they have in this edge group, it is a pretty light. Dayo Odeyingbo, Austin Booker, and Tano Capassignon. There is some ability in this group. You do hope that they can get after the quarterback a little bit. I think Capassignon's going to be a little bit more of your run defender, and Odeyingbo is going to get after the quarterback a little bit more. But it is a weak group, and if Montez Sweat does miss time, then this edge group is going to be pretty light and not going to be able to get after the quarterback very well. On the interior, they actually do have some decent depth here with Grady Jarrett, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, and Shamar Turner. Gervon Dexter, I think, is developing into a pretty good player, and so I do think you can expect him to hopefully take another step up. And Grady Jarrett, unfortunately, I think is probably going to start trending in the other direction as he is getting up there in age. But both of these guys can stop the run and get after the quarterback at pretty decent levels. Having a guy like Andrew Billings or Shamar Turner might help Grady Jarrett, so where you can maybe stay off the field and kind of be more of a pass rusher as opposed to an every down player. But time will tell what Dennis Allen's going to do with that defensive line. This linebacking group is also one of the better linebacking groups in the league. They're really great at run defense, and they are pretty good coverage players as well. TJ Edwards is one of the smarter linebackers in the league. Unfortunately, he's just not a great athlete. And so I think that limits him from being one of the true elite linebackers in the league. But he's a really good run defender. Tremaine Edmonds, he's definitely a much better athlete, but not quite hasn't figured it out quite to the same level as TJ Edwards. But between the two of them, you're still getting really good linebacker play. You're going to be able to stop the run very well and still not have to worry about being a liability in pass coverage. So this is definitely a top 10 linebacking room and something you're not worried about at all. Now, the secondary, I do think could go both ways, but I am excited for them. I do think they'll actually fit this kind of bump and run scheme very well. So starting off with Jalen Johnson, who's really developed into kind of like a fringe top 10 corner. He doesn't have the elite speed to be a true lockdown against, every single player. But if they're playing this Dennis Allen scheme where they're going to be doing a lot of press man coverage, that's really going to, I think Jalen Johnson is really going to succeed in that role. He has great press man technique and is a super big bodied physical corner. So if he's going to be jamming everybody at the line, I do think he's going to do a really good job of actually being able to limit teams' number one wide receivers. So if you have a guy in fantasy who's going against Chicago, I think it's going to be a bench week. I don't care who it is. I think he's going to be a good job of slowing them down. Kyler Gordon, same thing as your slot corner, is one of these aggressive, in your face type of players too. So as your slot corner, I think he's going to do a good job of being able to get in people's faces and really buy into this scheme as well. Tyreek Stevenson could kind of go either way for him. He's a guy who, in theory, has potential, but he was also the guy kind of responsible for that fail Mary play that they let up. So he could kind of go either way, and probably this is going to be kind of where you start talking about the weakness in the cornerback position, but theoretically has the upside to still be a good corner and develop with this scheme. And then Terrell Smith is off Frazier, not expecting a whole lot from them. If they start getting on the field, I think we're going to start having a true weakness at that other corner spot. And then in the safety room, Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker are both good players. Kevin Byard is kind of like in that Grady Jarrett era of his career, where he's getting up there in age and is probably going to be losing a step or two. But maybe if you have a good defensive line in front seven, you won't really need him to be making plays quite as much. And then Jaquan Brisker is honestly one of my favorite players in the league to watch, but he's coming off missing significant time. So who knows if he's going to be full go 100% to start the season, or if he's going to be a little bit slower, kind of getting into this new scheme. And then Elijah Hicks and Simone Biles' husbands are kind of just okay safeties as well. So overall, I actually do have a lot of faith that this defense is going to be a pretty solid group, especially with Dennis Allen and his coaching. I think he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. So I think this defense is going to carry this team, which people won't really expect when you have Ben Johnson coaching the other side. So now I'm going to welcome you to the Fantasy Control Room. This is where we begin discussing all things fantasy football. Today we're going to start off with DJ Moore. So he's currently going around wide receiver 20 in your drafts. If you believe in DJ Moore as a player, draft him. I do think he might have already had his best season. I don't know if he's going to, really last and be a great wide receiver in Chicago anymore. However, he is going to be the number one wide receiver in this offense. We've seen Amon-Ra have great success. So if you believe in Moore at this value, I do think it's a great target to go ahead and pick up. Personally, not someone I'm taking, but as a wide receiver 2 flex option, there's definitely worse people to go after. Personally, for me, in this range, I'd rather go for Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, or Courtland Sutton. I do think these guys are either better or around the same tier as him. And I think those guys, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, and Courtland Sutton are all true number one wide receivers as well, who I think will have better offenses. Devontae Adams will be a wide receiver 2, but he's still a top 10 wide receiver in this league, and he's going to be in one of the most pass-happy offenses in the league. So I would probably personally target one of those other guys instead, but I don't think DJ Moore is a bad pick if you want to take a flyer on him. But next up, DeAndre Swift, RB21. Do not draft DeAndre Swift. He's going to lose his job this season. I guarantee it. At some point, Roschon Johnson is going to take over his starting job. I think Ben Johnson is going to get annoyed with DeAndre Swift and his inability to kind of just hit the hole and have good vision and do what the play call designs for. So I am not touching him at all, especially when there's really good options in this range. Chuba Hubbard, clear RB1. I think James Conner, still RB1. Joe Mixon, even with Nick Chubb being in Houston, I don't know if Nick Chubb is going to be eating a whole lot of Joe Mixon's workload. And then Trayvon Henderson, as a rookie, I do think has really good upside in this Patriots offense. So in this spot in the draft, there's many other targets I'm taking. Do not draft DeAndre Swift in your fantasy leagues. So now as we kind of start talking about some of the other players on this offense, Caleb Williams is currently being drafted at QB 15. Honestly, if you're drafting a quarterback kind of in this range, I'd rather just kind of try to shoot for one of the elite guys. Um, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, etc. He does have decent upside. Jared Goff finished around like QB 6 or 7 last year. So you're hoping that Caleb Williams can kind of replicate that like the Lions offense, but I don't think this is the Lions offense. I don't think Caleb Williams is as good of a player. Personally, I'm avoiding and I'm probably targeting other quarterbacks instead. Roschon Johnson at RB57, I do think that's great. A great late round handcuff to take. I know some of the other elite guys, everybody likes taking their handcuffs, but I do think Roschon Johnson is going to come in and be able to be pretty productive and take DeAndre Swift's job. Now, I think he's probably like flex player upside is kind of the best of what you'd expect from him, but as a late round flyer, I do think it's solid value. Rome Odunze, wide receiver 37. I don't know how well he's going to produce as the wide receiver 2 on this team, and he doesn't quite have the same speed of like a Jameson Williams. So I do definitely think there's higher upside players in this range. And then Colston Loveland is tight end 11 as of right now. Honestly, any tight end is a good tight end if you can just plug and forget. Personally, I'm trying to target one of the elite guys instead, but it's a rookie that's worth taking a shot on. So if you draft him at tight end 11, it's definitely worth it. So now, as we talk about the schedule, this is where I start getting worried about this team. So opening up, they have to go against Minnesota and Detroit, 2 division rivals, 2 teams that I think are going to be really good again. So I think you're starting off with 2 straight losses. I think Dallas and going to Vegas, winnable-ish games, but I still think Dallas and Vegas do have some redeemable aspects. So I can see them winning both or losing both. But I think you're probably winning Dallas, losing Vegas. So we're 1-3, heading into a super early bye. And this is where the schedule really gets difficult. So you have to go week 6, go to Washington. It's going to be a really good team. Week 7 at home against New Orleans, very winnable game. But then you have to play on the road in Baltimore and on the road in Cincinnati back-to-back weeks. That's a brutal stretch of your schedule. After that, you get rewarded with the Giants at home. So it's a game I would expect them to win. But then they have to go to Minnesota, play the Pittsburgh Steelers, go to reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, go to Green Bay, come home against Cleveland, so there's a win, but then play Green Bay on the road to San Francisco and then finish the season with Detroit. So their over-under is at 8.5 wins. I do not see 9 wins on the schedule. I think very best case scenario, you're getting to 8 with wins over Dallas, Vegas, New Orleans, Giants, Cleveland, maybe Pittsburgh, and a divisional game or 2 there. So yeah, this schedule is absolutely brutal. I mean, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philly, Green Bay, San Francisco, and Detroit. You have to play all of those games in a row and you just get one game against Cleveland in between them. That is freaking brutal. I don't care what team you are. So I think their ceiling is 8 and 9 at best. I think their floor is legit like 4 or 5 wins. And honestly, that's where I'm predicting them to finish. I mean, this schedule is difficult no matter what team in the league you are. Having to go to Philly, Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati, that's difficult. Oh, and you're in the NFC North, which has 3 of the best teams in the league. Like, they just got the short end of the stick, no way about it. Like, this is such a brutal draw. Even Pittsburgh is a team that I'm super high on, and I think this defense is really going to embarrass Caleb Williams. So I think this team, I don't care what they did, I don't care about Ben Johnson. This schedule alone is already so difficult. And when I have concerns about Caleb Williams in this offense, this is why I have the Bears as the 28th ranked team. I just don't think they're good enough to get through this absolute gauntlet of a schedule with more than 6 wins. There's just really no way. So now when we get to the cover story where we start talking about all things sports betting, I'm slamming that under at 8.5. I do not see 9 wins anywhere on that schedule. There's no way they get there. When you start talking about their odds as division winner, they're fourth in their division for a reason. No chance they win the division with the other three guys they have to go against. Are they making the playoffs with this schedule? Definitely not. There's no way they make the playoffs with this schedule. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? Definitely not. That is an absolute waste of money if anybody wants to bet that. Do not bet them to win the Super Bowl. They're not making the playoffs, so there's no way they even get there. Now, when we start talking about player props, I'm betting a whole lot of unders. I do think that this offense is going to struggle, and I think people are giving it too much credit just because of Ben Johnson. So Caleb Williams, I think, is going to struggle. So I'm taking under 3,599.5 passing yards. DJ Moore, I do lean on the side that he's going to struggle. This passing offense won't be great. So I'm saying under 999.5 receiving yards. Rome Odunze, don't think he's going to be super productive as this team's second wide receiver. I'm saying under 824.5 receiving yards. DeAndre Swift, as I said, I'm predicting that he's losing his job before the season ends. So I don't think he's getting to 850 rushing yards. So I'm taking his under as well. People are not talking about how much I don't think the players fit the scheme for the Bears and how difficult their schedule is. When you compare both of those, I'm fading this team really on all sides from all aspects. So now when we get to the Scorch report, this is where we give our hottest takes of the season. Bears fans, I want you to look at both of these faces. And I think you need to decide right now if you're going to be on the side of Ben Johnson or Caleb Williams. Because I think you will finish this season, but I think after next season, one of these two guys will no longer be here. I really don't think that these two guys are going to gel and be able to figure it out. So I think as of right now, pick which one you want to stay loyal to because the 2027 Chicago Bears are going to be missing one of these guys. So they're going to move on from Ben Johnson or they're going to draft Caleb Williams' replacement. So Bears fans, pick right now which side of history you want to be on. So with that being said, that is my take on the Chicago Bears. Bears fans, I know you are a passionate, diehard bunch, so go ahead and drop down in the comments below how much of an idiot you think I am. Go ahead and bookmark this video, and hopefully next January, you'll come back and we can admit, yeah, maybe this team had a difficult schedule and not great scheme fits. I would love to be wrong. I really like Ben Johnson. I want him to succeed, but I just overall don't think this team has it in them to surpass the expectations that are set on them. So I'm fading the Bears all the way around this season. So that is going to be the video for you today. Go ahead, as I said, comment down below. If you like the video, please go ahead and like, and go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. We have 27 videos to make in about 27 more days, so there's going to be a lot of content coming for you the next month up to the NFL season. And then stick around for the NFL season. We're going to have plenty of content during the weeks as well. Thanks for watching. Peace.